Test.
If you've just walked in, to the right, there is hot chicken. Please enjoy. We're going to get started in just a few minutes here. If you want to grab a drink, if you want to use a restroom, whatever you need to do before we go ahead and get started. Thanks.
Test. Okay. Test. Test. Just actually. Test. Test. I think I'm gonna take this. Yeah. Test. That's good. Test. 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 Very good. Yep. Okay. Cool. Okay.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. Everybody set? Am I not staring into a projector light anymore? All right, welcome. Welcome to the June Columbus Ruby Brigade meeting. Thank you all for joining us. My name is John Kennedy. I'll be your MC for the evening. Just a few quick announcements before we get started with tonight's talks. One, you may have noticed there's food. What you may not have noticed is that we have the meetup.com RSVP system in place. You can get the link from columbusrb.com. A lot of people RSVP'd, and we thank you for that. If you didn't, please remember to. It helps us know how much food to order, make sure we don't get too much or too little, and if you have dietary restrictions, it helps us order food that you can eat. So please RSVP. It helps out immensely. Secondly, if you've been here before, you realize that the parking has gone from weird to also weird. We've changed the parking system around a little bit at the office, which means the way we interact will change. So you need to have your parking ticket, the thing that the machine gave you. I will put a sticker on that, and then you will drive out of the left lane and just insert the entire card into the machine, and that will get you out for free. If you don't do that, it will probably charge you. We have an infographic that is not part of this talk, but it'll be cycling a little bit later. And of course, if you have any questions, come find me. But you do not need to pay to get out, so please remember that and just come and find me, and we'll make sure you get the sticker put on your parking ticket. We have two wonderful speakers tonight. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started with Nikolai with non-tech skills for software developers.
Test, final test. It's working. How are you all guys doing tonight? My name is Nikola. This is my fourth time attending Columbus Ruby Brigade. It's my first time as a speaker. And before I start anything else, I want to thank the amazing organizers and thank them for food and this wonderful crowd. It's really good to come back. When I was researching basically the topic and is it even good to talk about, the main feedback that I got when I was talking to other people about non-technical skills is that basically being a good software developer or engineer is a lot more than typing things on your keyboard, which we all are pretty much aware of. The things that I'm going to talk about might not seem super conventional, but if they don't make a lot of sense at the time that I'm speaking about them, just bear with me. I promise you it's going to make all the sense at the end. If you have any questions about anything that's on the slides, just raise your hand, and I'm going to try to do my best to actually answer the question. So the talk is going to be split into three main parts. The first part is going to be art of good communication. The second part is going to be art of not burning out. And the third part, which is kind of the shortest part, is going to be art of getting things done. So let's get right to it. Art of good communication. We all know that communication is really important in our jobs. We communicate via different mediums, be it Slack, GitHub, Jabber, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger. We also use verbal communication and emails, so on and so forth. So basically, we communicate on a daily level. And that made me wonder, why are a lot of us still bad at communicating if we communicate on a daily level? And I did some research, read a couple of books, asked people for feedback, kind of observed myself and my coworkers, and I came to an interesting conclusion. If you Google how to have a good conversation or how to be a good communicator with other people, what you find, what most likely you're going to find on the internet is basically, body language, or you should put these things in the sentence, or you should express your opinion in this way, so on and so forth. But after my research, what I found is that the pillars of good communication actually rest in two things. It's being happy internally and being empathetic to others. If we have those two things, the chances of having a bad conversation are very low. So let's get on to the first one. Happiness. Is being happy a skill? Can we teach ourselves to be happy? And there are a couple of different strong opinions out there on the internet, of course. But what I think is that, yes, we can definitely teach ourselves to be happy. And the reason why is because happiness is a state of mind. And we can get ourselves in whatever state of mind we want to be in. Now, for happiness, it's interesting. There are these things called external triggers. Basically buying a car or pushing code to production or getting a new phone or a new Mac or whatever. And we all know that feeling when we buy something new and we become happy. That's pretty awesome, but the thing there is it only lasts for so long. And after that period of time, it depends what it is. Sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's a month. It actually fades away. And on the other hand, the psychologists have discovered there's this thing called internal happiness that's a lot more, it lasts a lot longer, basically. And the quickest way, for me at least personally, to get to that other part of the happiness is to be grateful for whatever I have. Now we come to the question again, is gratefulness a skill? Can that be taught? And again, I think the answer is yes. And the reason why I think that's true is there is plenty of like neuroscience research that backs it up. But what it comes down to is constantly reminding yourself that you have a lot and that it's really going good for you. It's really easy to get stuck into like day-to-day problems, and we all been there, right? Like, oh, this didn't work today, or that happened, or country is bad, or whatever. But actually, if we manage to step back from that and actually realize how good it is, things kind of start turning around. For me personally, what I found works best is journaling. I don't journal often. I journal at least not as much as I should. But whenever I feel that I'm kind of down or angry or frustrated at somebody or at something, I sit down, I have a little notebook, and I write down anywhere from 1 to 5 things of why am I grateful for and what am I grateful about. And that can be like the smallest thing, like the coffee in the morning or the code that I pushed yesterday or my coworkers or even like my family, of course, so on and so forth. And what that leaves me, after I finish writing those things, it reminds me that life is actually pretty good and that it's actually not as bad as I think it is. And that kind of puts me in a grateful state, which in turn leads me to be happy internally, which then leads to having a good conversation. The second pillar of good communication, I think, is empathy. And people go through a lot of problems every single day. We all have different issues on a personal, career level or whatever. And once we talk to other people and there's a certain conflict and or at least some tension in the air and disagreement on certain things, the way we tend to try to resolve the conflict is basically try to put out a fire by throwing more fire at it. And that's kind of normal human instinct. It kind of comes down to prehistoric era where we kind of try to run away from lions and protect ourselves because we see whenever somebody talks to us in a bad way or disagrees with us, our natural instinct is to defend and once we defend ourselves, try to attack the other person. And the way to kind of resolve this, at least for me, was being very self-aware of my behavior, and that's actually how we do things. And the thing that helped me out the most with that was meditation. I use an app called Headspace. I don't know if you ever heard about Headspace or not. Did anybody heard about Headspace? Okay, yeah, Headspace is pretty cool. But basically, what meditation helped with a lot of stuff. But one of the first things I noticed is being very self-aware of how I behave, and I notice in other people how they behave. And basically, whenever I talk to somebody and they have a argument or are just in a bad mood, I try to help them. And in result, usually what happens is we all get the win-win out of a conversation. The second thing I wanted to talk about is art of not burning out. I've been in the startup community this is my, I think, 6th year. I started when I was 17. And I noticed in the small teams and medium teams, and even like a medium-sized corporations, I noticed there's this thing called burning out. I didn't even know what it was when I started, but I definitely noticed it. And it's interesting. I started researching why, kind of the same thing as communication. Why are we burning out? What's the actual reason behind it? And what I found out is that there's this inherent belief that more work equals better results. And I think that's inherently flawed, and I don't think that's actually true. But if you see the news or TechCrunch, or if you look at Silicon Valley, the show, or all these other things, what you'll find is that we praise people who work 4 nights in a row and 4 days in a row, or we praise people that work 15 hours a day for 6 weeks in a row or something like that. And It's really easy to fall into the trap because everybody's talking about it, and we're learning from media and from other sources, and we're like, yes, we want to be that successful, so that means we actually have to work as much as those people. They usually compare, when somebody argues about these things, they usually compare software developers to athletes for some reason, as far as hardware goes. At least that's what I saw on Twitter recently, and it's interesting. I've been a basketball player almost my whole life. I still play basketball, and as a result of that, I researched basketball players a lot. And the one in particular called Kobe Bryant. I think you all know about Kobe Bryant. Who knows about Kobe Bryant? Woo. Yeah, Lakers fan. Just kidding. I'm a Cleveland. I'm a Cavaliers fan. Basically, what I found out is that Kobe Bryant takes deliberate rest periods, and he protects his rest periods more than his work hours. So, for example, during the off season, he did this thing called 6-hour workdays, where he worked out 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the noon, and then 1.5 to 2 hours of recovery work in the evening. And that kind of is completely unconventional because people think that during the off season, athletes work the most, the hardest, right? So what he did in the meantime, in between the work sessions, he did all of the normal life stuff, like walking the dog, taking care of his family, so on and so forth. And of course, there are always exceptions to the rules, and I think people like Elon Musk are special in a way that I think they can handle a lot more work hours than a lot of us can, and I'm not definitely denying that. And people like Gary Vaynerchuk as well. So, and there are always exceptions to the rules, but I don't think burning out has a good ROI, and it actually costs a lot more money to burn out than not to burn out. And if you remember last time that you burned out and how much time you spent recovering from a thing, you're going to see that if you waited one more day and kind of call it a quits for that day, that you'd have probably better results in the long run. And I know we all love to write software, and that's what I've been doing for the last 6 or 7 years. But I think we need to do a better job of protecting our free time more. And especially, I don't know if you've ever been in a startup. Definitely, I am. But it can get pretty hectic. And what I noticed happening a lot is people just keep working all day, every day for weeks and months, and then nothing comes out of it. And what I started doing not recently, but when I started trying to get better at not burning out, what I started doing is I started blocking out my free time. And I always knew where I was going to work, but I definitely never knew when I was not going to work. So what I did is every single morning I woke up, and you're going to see my kind of morning routine in the next couple of slides here. I woke up and I put a block of time for whatever other activity besides tapping into my computer is. And I keep doing that, and I've gotten a little bit better at not burning out. Not ideal for sure, but I just gotten a lot better at blocking out time, and basically whenever it's not work time, I'm not doing work. And I know that's super hard sometimes, especially if we're in the open source, and we always try to code our stuff on the side. But I think it's for better results in the long run, we have to sometimes stop ourselves from typing things in the computer. And that sounds super counterintuitive, but I think it produces better results. And one more thing. People argue that I see a lot of discussions on the internet about 40 hours of work not being enough versus being good enough. And then I look at how people work, and it turns out that a lot of our time is spent on Reddit or Hacker News or Facebook or Twitter or whatever. And we don't notice that because, it's just 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. But it actually eats up a lot of our time. And what I found out is if you actually work 8 hours a day and not spend an hour and a half on Facebook in total, you can get a lot of things done. And yes, sometimes 8 hours is not enough, but even if you incorporate your side projects and things of that nature, 2 hours or 1 hour on top of all of that, I think is plenty, and you can get a lot done. So moving on to the next part is art of getting things done. This is kind of closely tied to my previous points, but in order to not burn out, you need to be very effective with your time and how are you basically spending your working hours. And I came up with this. This is not my, oh, you probably can't, can you guys see this? No? Oh, okay, try to zoom in. I can just walk you through. But I stole this from a gentleman named Ben Orenstein. Who knows who Ben Orenstein is? Ooh. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of his. I tried a couple of different frameworks of how to do things and how to, be the most efficient with my time. And what I came up with is I'm a creature of habit, as I think we all are. And if I repeat the same routine every single morning, I can get myself in the zone a lot faster. And as a result of that zone, I usually pick one thing that I think is going to be the most difficult, and that kind of makes me most uncomfortable. And I do that one thing for the next 1.5 hours or 2 hours, basically until I think it's good for today. So I'm going to kind of walk you through the 3 sections here if you don't see it. The first section is called Sweep, and it consists of closing Slack, email, messages. Then I enabled the thing called Do Not Disturb on a Mac. You have it on the top right. It's a wonderful thing. The notifications don't pop up anymore. Then I process my personal email inbox, and there's this, in brackets, it says remember a 2-minute rule. Basically what that is if you can respond in an email in 2 minutes, you do it immediately. If you cannot, then you post a note or use whatever to-do system you use to respond later. Then I process my work email, my messages, my Slack. I look at my calendar real quick to see if there's anything really soon happening so I can continue doing my own thing. Then what I do is I process whatever I did in a sweep phase. I process my inbox in my to-do system. I use Todoist. I tried OmniFocus. It's too hardcore for me. I can't. There are too many workflows to incorporate. But basically, I process whatever is in my Todoist app, and after that, I pick one thing and I work on that one thing. It's pretty liberating to do only one thing and kind of know that if you finish only that one thing, you did a good day's work. Of course, you can you're most likely going to do another thing after that one thing, but it's pretty liberating to know. For example, I read an article just recently that Darwin, the famous scientist and biologist, what he did is he only worked, I think, around 4 hours a day or something, 5 days, and then 5 hours a day, and basically he called it a good day's work after that and just walked around and spent time with his family. So I think generally, to close off this talk, there's a lot of problems in our software development community. There's plenty of good things, but I see people burning out and not being happy and just not having good conversations with other people, and that makes me sad sometimes. That was kind of the point of this conversation, of this talk. And protect your free time. Yes, code in free time, but as well do other things. Be efficient with your time and be happy eternally, and that's going to result, and also empathetic to other people, and that's going to result in great conversations. And there's a QA section if you guys have any questions. That's pretty much it.
Do we have any questions?
No. Okay. Oh. Perspective on what? Oh. Yes. Hot work, that's a good question. Hot work perspective is basically I have a custom view in Todoist where it's not custom, I think it's actually already pre-built. It's, you see only the things that you're going to do today. So it hides the entire other backlog of things. So that's pretty much hot work to-do list. It's today to-do list. Todoist. Yes. Todoist. It's called Todoist, yes.
Any other questions? All right, then. Once again, let's hear it for Nikolai.
Thank you, guys.